Happy Independence Day, Americans. Well done getting away from that filthy monarchist nation that taxed you but didn't represent you. But is America now more divided than ever and on the very precipice of a civil war? Should you have stayed with us? Hello there, you 5.7 million awakening wonders. Thank you for joining me on this voyage towards truth. On this channel, we are determined to confront the disingenuity of the system, whether it's the mainstream media, the state, or its corporate relationships that prevent us, ordinary people, even though we're a little bit strange deep down, from expressing ourselves truly, freely, moment to moment. If you ain't turned on the notification bell yet, turn on the notification bell right now and subscribe. We make videos every single day, and it's vital that you watch all of them and that we're able to thwart the algorithm before the algorithm thwarts us. Hey, if you are an American or you live in America right now or you care about America because you recognize that it's the centrifugal point of our global culture, aside from sort of potential Chinese dominance down the line and Russian dominance, is there anything interrupting that potential? Look at the old mainstream news, baby. They'll tell you. It's an interesting time to look at American culture. Is it more divided than it's ever been? Or is American society formulated on division from its inception to its evolution, from its independence wars, right down to the civil strife that defined it, a couple hundred years ago?
Some experts actually believe that the reversal of Roe v. Wade is likely to trigger battles among states that could be unlike anything we've seen since before the Civil War.
Talk of a civil war might seem highfalutin and ridiculous, but 44% of Americans believe that the nation is heading towards a civil war. Gun control, pro-life, pro-choice issues, the hatred and loathing between two centrist parties, neither of which say anything that radical like, why don't we start allowing communities to govern themselves, allow people to freely formulate localized governments, let's wrestle power away from centralized corporations. No one's discussing those kind of issues, but maybe it's time to start. Let's have a look at this article. This is from Daniel Pinchbeck's Substack, citing an article by Stephen March. American liberals in the American cities retain a kind of desperate faith in their country's institutions that amounts to nearly delusion. Americans have taught themselves for 250 years that their country, in its ideals and systems, is the solution to history. It is tough under those conditions to accept being just another of history's half perpetrators, half victims. Unfortunately, America appears to have entered into a self-defeating loop in which the collapsing system prevents reforms to the system itself. He gives a useful shorthand definition for a civil war from the Peace Research Institute in Oslo to keep in mind. 1,000 combatant deaths within a year. That is what constitutes a war. If there are 1,000 combatant deaths within a year, that constitutes civil war. There is also civil strife, which begins at 25 deaths a year. In the United States in 2019, domestic anti-government extremists killed 42 people. In 2018, they killed 53 people. In 2017, 37. In 2016, 72. And in 2015, 70. By this definition, America is already in a state of civil strife and on the threshold of civil war. When you look at the heightening tensions in the nation of America, the ongoing battle for the media space and the cultural space, the extreme ways in which most cultural arguments are conducted, with both sides focusing on the antithetical aspects of their opponent's arguments or highlighting the worst aspects of their opponent's opinions, it's difficult to imagine how solutions can be reached. If you take, for example, the conversation about abortion or termination, depending on what you want to call it, again, based on your political and cultural position. One side focuses on late-term abortions. The other side focuses under extreme conditions under which anyone would agree that termination or abortion would be necessary. The argument that people should have freedom and bodily autonomy seems to me to be an extremely reasonable one, and certainly one that a lot of people were interested in using during the time of mandated vaccines and conversations of that nature. Also, the sacredness of life seems like a significant point and one that has to be observed. No one can claim to have a perfect ideology around such a complex issue. In fact, what it seems to me, now more than ever, is it's impossible to have a United States of America. In a sense, a nation like the United States and other nations like the United Kingdom, which is having its own navel-gazing, introspective period in light and in lieu of Brexit and leaving the European Union, need to review their entire constitutional ideology. In the case of the UK, we do not have a constitution. I was talking about this recently in my live stream show. What's going on in America right now? The culture war is reaching fever pitch. It's peculiar, I note, that at a time after the pandemic, when people's interest naturally wanes around the conflict in Ukraine that cultural issues around guns and pro-life, pro-choice matters are once again at the forefront of American consciousness. A lot of people are talking for the first time about the possibility of a civil war within America. And also, I think, with countries like the United Kingdom and the United States of America, why have you had to put United in your title? What are you trying to hide? Do you know what I mean? Like Italy don't call itself United Italy, or it's not like France, everything's fine, or is it like Angola, give us a smile? Like if you're putting United States of America in the title of your country, then it means that there's something wrong, that that you're trying to mask and hide something. And I would imagine what that is fractionalism and discontent. Because you know what I believe in? Above all else, I believe in decentralization. I believe in the right of people to run their own communities, their own lives, and their own amenities. The problem is, as I've said to you many times, is it's very difficult to challenge a hegemony without a counter-hegemony, i.e. you can't overthrow the status quo unless you've got a status quo to challenge it with. An obvious example of this was the Arab Spring. When there were protests all over Egypt and there was a popular uprising that led, in fact, to the displacement of their government, anything could have happened. A more populist or progressive government could have emerged, but what eventually happened is the Islamic Brotherhood took control, because the Islamic Brotherhood have an ideology. It may not be an ideology that everybody believes in or agrees with, but it was a ready-to-go ideology. They have a hegemony. They have a set of principles ready to go. The ongoing argument between communism and anarchism, and I know a lot of you guys will not be into communism at all, and with good reason when you look at Stalinism, Maoism, and in fact the kind of the centralisation that is unavoidable within state-led models. I don't want to give more power to the state. I don't want to give more power to corporations. I believe in localism, communitarianism, collectivism, that communities should be run by the people that live within them, that the democratic process should be as close to the people affected by it as possible. Why are we trying to retain something called the United States of America or the EU or the United Kingdom for whose benefits? Now, many of us will feel patriotic about our nations. Of course we will. Our tribal instincts have been harnessed and connected and directed towards the nationalist impulse and the narratives around them, the flags and the creeds. But how do you truly benefit from being an English, French, or an American citizen when it comes down to it? Do you think America exists for you, or do you think America exists for the state and the most powerful corporate interests in the world? So when it comes to the reasons for the potential for a civil war, or at least for rising tensions, I can well understand them. Let's remember, though, at this time of civil strife and doubts about the direction of your nation, that America is still a fantastic nation. What do you feel as an American person? Is your Americanness defined by other Americans that you dislike? Is that the most American thing about you? What makes me American is that I fucking hate those Americans over there. Or can you still see in your nation beautiful principles, beautiful ideologies, beautiful potential, an ability for people from opposing backgrounds, different ideologies, to come together in collusion and create new cultural spaces? America, in a way, created the last century, in some degrees in opposition to other ideologies, of course. That's what the Cold War and the subsequent proxy wars have been about. And in some ways, America is the epitome of capitalist imperialism and domination through commerce. But another side of the American story is the people that live in America. I once drove from Massachusetts to San Francisco, and I met some of the most beautiful people in places that are derisively and dismissively called flyover states, like in Nevada, meeting wonderful people. In Dodge, I met amazing people. In Colorado, I met some of those beautiful people that I've ever met. America is still the nation that we look towards to create our culture, and to see America torn apart by arguments about abortion and gun control and politics and your institutions, for me as an English person, gives me no satisfaction at all, because as many of you say, politics is downstream from culture, and culture is coming out of America. How do we, on your Independence Day, look at the tension that exists between traditionalism, that has many, many reasonable arguments and many, many proud offerings to bring forth, and progressivism, which is necessary, which is part of the spirit of America? If you hadn't progressed beyond the red coats and the bayonets and paying tax to a mad king, then where would you be right now? But also, if you don't embrace the idea of change, different ideologies, different identities, identities. What is America? So you can see that the American experiment now perhaps enters its most vital phase. How do you resolve traditionalism versus progressivism? How do you embrace the aspects of woke culture that are vital? That people with identities outside of the mainstream and dominator culture must be respected and heard and listened to and valued. That everybody has the right to freely express themselves if they're not harming other people. And on the other side of this debate, how do we respect the great traditions of masculinity, Christianity, Judaism, and bring in other ideologies that have been outside of the post-European colonial model, such as Islam, Hinduism, Asian ideologies, Buddhism, etc. How do we stay true to the greatest American tradition that there is, bring people together and create a culture from the tension and the magnetism that emerges when two opposing poles are forced to exist in the same environment? That's not old Russ talking, that's quantum physics. That's the fermentation of the very matter of our planet, born out of exploding stars, every element of which we are comprised was once part of an explosion in what we would now be forced to call deep space. America is still the nation that epitomizes the earth. Still, when we look at potential models, would you prefer state Stalinist communism or whatever the hell it is they're up to over in China? That seems a bit scary when you see them cats in bags in those wailing towers and the lockdowns and the lies around the Wuhan labs. America is still the best hope that we have, but it has to become a different type of America. It has to become America that frees itself from corporatism, the corruption, the revolving door between Washington, big tech and Wall Street. That's got to be shut down. Ordinary American blue-collar folk have got to be heard. The racial tensions that are being exacerbated have got to be loosened. The arguments between progressivism and traditionalism have to be resolved into something where we can live easily together. Then you have one nation under God. Then you have a reason for a glorious eagle in flight. Then the stars and stripes and star-spangled banner means something more than an opportunity for ordinary Americans to be exploited by powerful corporations. And that is an America that not only Americans need, but that the whole damn world needs. And I say that as a kind of British mad king. But that's just what I think, and I'm descended directly from King George, as you can see from my wide variety of mental illnesses. What do you think? Let us know in the comments below. Give this video a thumbs up, share it around widely, get people talking about this. The one thing they fear more than anything is people from different ideological and political and cultural backgrounds coming together in unison and peace. Then we can face the behemoths, the Goliaths, the ogres and the monsters and the dragons together. If we're willing to overlook our prejudices and our biases, if we're willing to hear the truth and validity in other people's arguments, then we have a chance. Then a new America can rise. Then new freedoms may yet be won. Then the forefathers and aftermothers can come together in some glorious natal union. And if you agree with me, let me know in the comments below. If you think I'm crazy, let me know that in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, have a look at either of these. And please sign up to our mailing list. We've got some big moves coming up, let me tell you. I can't tell you about it yet, but some big things are going to happen. I need you on that mailing list so I can stay in touch with you. I've got big shit to tell you. Big shit. Please stay close to us, but more important than any of that, please stay free.